and welcome to the Thin Green Line. All right, for our first story, we go to Northern California. Now, back in September of 1998, a kid named David Chain went into the woods to try to stop a logger from cutting down a redwood tree. Well, it turned out to be the last thing that David Chain ever did. So I went there to Humboldt County, California, to try to find out who killed David Chain.
It was bound to happen. Somebody was gonna get hurt sooner or later.
Trespassing has never been punishable by death.
Get out of here!
Gypsy, how you doing?
Okay. He was not ready to die. What we had done was found something worth dying for.
Millions of acres of ancient redwood trees once carpeted America's western frontier. Today, after more than a century of logging, only a tiny percentage remains. No place are people more aware of the loss of these forests than in Humboldt County, California, where the Pacific Lumber Company has supported generations of residents. Environmentalists charge that since Pacific Lumber was taken over by financier Charles Hurwitz in 1986, the trees have been clear-cut at an unprecedented rate.
When you go out across the country, they always say, oh yeah, the redwoods, they're protected. And you say, no. And these people are shocked, like, you mean they logged the redwoods?
On the front lines of the battle to preserve these forests is Earth First, an environmental organization which claims that Pacific Lumber's logging practices have resulted in mudslides, contaminated rivers, and the destruction of endangered wildlife habitat. They engage in acts of civil disobedience to protest the company's environmental recklessness. Tensions escalated to new heights as police repeatedly dealt with protesters by applying pepper spray to their eyes. Last year, the struggle reached a deadly climax. Shortly after a confrontation with an enraged logger, a redwood came crashing down, killing 24-year-old activist David Chain, known as Gypsy.
We went in with the intent to engage the logging crew and talk to them and try to discuss the idea that they might be breaking the law and that they had broken the law very recently.
We approached the site and we started hollering out, to let them know that we were there.
According to the district attorney, the logger did not know that protesters were nearby.
Both he and his spotter indicated, we didn't see these people.
But the protesters were nearby. They recorded the following videotape less than an hour before David was killed.
Get out of here! I wish I had my pistol.
You could hear it in his voice. I mean, just the rage coming through. It scared me.
Yes, he had some very strong things to say. It was very clear that he didn't want these people there, that they were interfering with his livelihood. But the making of those threats by itself, without being able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a connection between those threats and the death, would result in a not guilty verdict.
But according to eyewitnesses, there was a clear connection between the logger's threats and his actions.
Trees were falling down slope away from us, and the first thing I noticed was that they started falling side slope right at us, and that it coincided with his threats of, I'm gonna fall this tree right at you, and this is a tall one that will hit you.
And we could hear the chainsaws going. And then we heard a stop.
And I was still yelling at the top of my lungs, and I could hear him banging out the wedge.
Within a few seconds after that, we looked up and saw this big mama redwood coming down.
I heard the crack of the main stem, and the tree started falling, and then I ran for my life. And
I probably only made it like 10 running steps, and that tree came crashing down right behind me.
When I got up, I was yelling at the top of my lungs again, what the hell are you doing? This is insane, you're gonna kill somebody.
And the girl that was with us, she's like, shut up, where's Gypsy?
The logger had run down the log, and he was the one who saw Gypsy first. He saw his body first. He said, oh Jesus, I knocked his head off.
According to the coroner's report, David died instantly. He was 24 years old.
What was Gypsy like? Oh, he was really stubborn. He was really funny. And maybe it just goes with the little Texan accent, but just so honest.
His eyes sparkled and he had a good wit. He had found something that was really empowering to him. We had talked about it, you know, that it feels good to be with a group of people who are willing to take action and stand up for what they believe in.
David lost his life standing up for his beliefs. Calling it a tragic accident, the district attorney decided not to press charges against the logger who cut the tree.
I think it's clear when you view the totality of the evidence that he did not know that David Chain was there, and that he did not intend the result that tragically came about.
I went out to the site and I saw what I saw, and I know what the truth is.
Infuriated by the DA's decision, David's mother hired attorney Stephen Scheckman to reopen the investigation.
If someone threatens to kill you and kills you within a short period of time of making that threat, the only logical explanation immediately that presents itself is that the person who made the threat and acted on the threat did so in a knowingly and intentional manner.
Pacific Lumber, its safety policy and procedures, and its employees should be investigated. I can't understand why they would be immediately ruled out as suspect for investigation, but they were.
Pacific Lumber refused to comment on the death of David Chain or the pending lawsuit, which will focus on the company's policies for dealing with protesters.
They should have had a procedure which all the workers that work in the woods of Pacific Lumber would have followed, and that procedure would have been, if you see a protester in the woods, get on the radio, get on the cell phone, call security, let them do their job.
Since 1995, Pacific Lumber has incurred over 350 forest practice violations, including one that halted logging in the area in which David was protesting. Unfortunately, it came 2 days too late.
No one wants to give their life to the forest. That's not what it's about. It's just a matter of that a corporation just doesn't have the right to do what they're doing up there to that forest, and he was willing to take a stand to stop it.
In March of 1999, the government paid the Pacific Lumber Company $480 million to turn just one small piece of their redwood forest into a park. The area where David Chain was killed remains unprotected. Coming up next, the Thin Green Line's commentator, Julia Butterfly. In December of 1997, Julia Butterfly climbed a redwood tree to try and save it. Her feet haven't touched the ground since. She now joins us from 180 feet in the air with an essay, this one on what life looks like when you live in a tree.
Hello, my name is Julia Butterfly Hill. I have been living in this amazing, over 1,000-year-old, beautiful ancient redwood tree since December 10th of 1997 to protect it and do my very best to protect other trees just as magnificent and other forests just as magnificent as this one. I believe that what's happening to our earth is a reflection of what's happening within us, that our outward landscape is very much a manifestation of our inner landscape. When you rip a plant from its roots out of the ground, out of what it needs, the minerals, the air, the water, it begins to turn brown and die. We too are earth. We are just another species. We've ripped our roots of connection from the earth and from each other, and now we're beginning to die. We get so caught up in our worlds of 9 to 5, our cars, our houses, our mortgage payments, whatever may be in our life, that we forget what the greatest gift of all truly is, and that's the gift of life. There is no greater gift. We must start working our roots of connection back into the earth and to each other, and begin remembering how precious and how beautiful and how sacred the earth and our environment is. Respect the earth, respect each other. I'll talk to you again soon.
Some people will rob their mother for the ends. Rats snitch on one another for the ends. Sometimes kids get murdered for the ends. So before we go any further, I want my ends. Sometimes kids get murdered